Hey, there's one place in the New Testament where a teaching of Jesus is brought. And it's interesting because this teaching of Jesus was not in any of the Gospels, not Matthew, not Mark, Luke, or John. But in Acts 20:35, the church in Acts preserved it. And it says this: the Lord Jesus himself said, "It is you're more blessed to give than to receive." You're better off. The word blessed, it's kind of a religious word, or blessed. And think of it like this. It means you're better off. You're fortunate. You're in a very good situation. We could also say, it doesn't sound spiritual, but you're lucky. Not in the random sense of the word, because it's God in it. But you'll live your life a lot better. You'll be much more joyful if you give. If you go through life giving and not receiving. I want to tell you this. Part of me believes that, but a part of me doesn't. And remember, and I have to say this, and I hope by me saying it, it'll give you the freedom to say it or to ask the question. Remember, Jesus is God. He is the Creator. And He says, I know what makes people blessed. And this is what it is. Jesus is wise. But I want to tell you, Jesus says it because that's how the kingdom of God operates. But we're in another kingdom, the kingdom of this world. And that's not our nature, right? The first words that a young 2-, 3-year-old says is, mine. Mine. That's this kingdom. So it seems to me that if we have difficulty in taking that as truth, and if we're honest, many of us do, we're going to have trouble with the kingdom, God's kingdom. I'd like for you to turn just for a while. We're going to look at a text. It's in Matthew 6, so it's the Sermon on the Mount, a section of it, Matthew 6, and we're going to read starting at verse 19. Jesus is teaching, and he says this to you and to me. He says this: do not store up for yourselves treasures on this earth. Already there's that ideal of just go, give it. Don't take. Don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust will destroy, or where thieves could break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in. It's safe. Because here's the deal, and here's what I want you to leave with. For where your treasure is, there will be you. There will be your heart. So we're going to look at this for the next couple of weeks. Let's start by saying this. All of us treasure something, right? And when I say treasure, if that sounds like, when I hear words, I'm thinking of a pirate. And, we all treasure something. In other words, what we value. In fact, when we value it, we also want to protect it. And so we put things that we treasure, when we can do it, in a big steel box, and there's a combination on the box, and we call it a safe. We want to keep our treasures safe. So Jesus, again, who was the wisest man who ever lived, he always gave great counsel, said, be careful what you're trying to put in the safe, because we can end up treasuring the wrong stuff. Look at this picture. That's a junkyard. A junkyard. Just look at it. And if it's better for you to see with my eyes, it'd be better to look at a bulletin. It reminds me of Sanford and Son. Am I dating myself, right? How many of you remember that? Yeah, some of you are old. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, Lamont, I'm coming to you, honey. I'll make it even older. When I was a kid, there used to be a guy, I'm not kidding, this is absolute truth. It's not one of those pastor stories. When I was a kid, there used to be a guy, he looked like kind of a hobo guy, but you probably had a lot of money. But he would come down our street. He had a horse and a big wagon. And, of course, the kids wanted to come and look at the horse. And he was called the Junk Man. And people would come out when they see it, and they would get rid of all of their junk, an old appliance, a rusty bicycle, anything and everything this guy would take. I never saw him say, "Oh, we can't take that." No, he just took everything. Now, just looking at that picture, look at it. Look at all that stuff. And the question is, I know you got it in your stuff, in your house. How did people get that in their homes? How did they get it in their basements, in their attics, in their garage? And sometimes our stuff, it just won't fit in our house or our garage. So we have to rent a storage unit or at a storage facility, Jay. And we think, I can't do it. I said to Laura during our move, where did we get all of this stuff? We rented the first year. We knew we were going to rent. So we didn't unpack. We just unpacked things that we needed. Everything else stayed in boxes in the basement. We really didn't miss any of it. And so we just took those boxes and moved them to a new basement. Now, I know you're sitting there asking this question. Where do we gather that stuff? I mean, did some junk fairy come to our home while we were asleep? Junk. More junk. No. All of that stuff in that picture used to be shiny. It used to be great. People actually said about every item, I need that. I must have this. And I will actually take gold, my silver, and I will buy that stuff. But the thing is, stuff does what it always does. Listen, I'm going to give you a truth. Your junk is not just in your attic. It's not just in your basement or your junk drawer. Do you have a junk drawer? Everybody has a junk drawer. If you don't know where it is, it's in the kitchen. It really is. And if you're really bad, Fibber, McGee, and Molly, man, if you remember that, you are in the old age club. They had a junk closet. So I want to say this, so you listen clearly. When you go home today, you're thinking, I'm glad I don't have all that junk. Well, just look at your house. Everything you see will become junk. All it needs is time. Treasures plus time equals junk. See, the only difference in what currently is on Macy's shelves and what's in your attic is time. And I have 100 ties and 30 suits as evidence. That new car you just bought, or that new SUV that costs $40,000 or $50,000, and it's shiny, and you said to your spouse, man, I love this new car smell. That thing will eventually become junk. All it needs is time. Treasure is junk waiting to happen. Most of you know that Laura and I just moved to our new house. We have, by the way, again, I want to say so many wonderful people helped us, donated boxes, thank you, and equipment, and everybody came over and just did an amazing amount of work. And my job on several of those days, we had like professional movers moving heavy stuff, furniture, appliances, but all the stuff, we just did ourselves, and then we had people here help us move that. And my job was to be in the truck. And on one occasion, we had some Click people. They came over and helped, and so I would hand them the box, and Laura, who's pretty good, writes on all the boxes, oh, this is Taylor's bedroom. Okay, this one goes to the basement. This one goes to this or that and that. And then there will be occasional boxes that didn't have anything written on them. And so I had a blade deal, and I opened it, look inside, and 9 times out of 10, I would think, why are we moving this? Right? So not only did I buy the original junk, now I'm paying to move the junk to a new basement. This is one of those boxes. I want to show you this. Before I show it to you, let me tell you a little bit. I spoke for Samaritan's Purse at a conference down in Atlanta, and I was after one of the sessions. I got home at the hotel, and it was kind of late, and I turned on the TV channel, and all of a sudden there was this guy, and I'm a sucker for any infomercial. I just love infomercials. Home Shopping Network is one of my favorite shows. Anyway, this guy says, and he was like, great shape. I'm sitting there, 11 o'clock at night, eating Fritos and a Coke. And he says, do you have 7 minutes? And I went, well, sure. I got 7 minutes. And he says, then he started going on. He goes, look at this guy. This is what he looked like before. And he looked like me. And he goes, but just 7 minutes a day. This is him now. Oh. And I thought, wow, 7 minutes? And then he said, you do this. He goes, if you call for this 7-minute workout, 7 minutes a day, that's all we need, 7 minutes. And if you send us 3 easy payments, and they're always easy payments. If you send us 3 easy payments of $39.95, this can be yours, and this is what you can look like. And it was like a bunch of little rubber band things, and you hook it onto a door, and it came with 3 DVDs. One DVD is like for stretching, the other one's like for certain muscle body parts. And I thought, man, this is it. I got a whole box of this, and this is just one piece of it. Already I feel a little more biff. So then I thought, no, I'm not going to buy that because my wife's a fitness instructor, a private fitness instructor, but she just charges so much. And charges for everything. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to buy it. Then the guy that comes on at the end, yes, you could. It looked like, but let me tell you this. If you act right now, but wait. If you act right now and call our telephone number, we'll knock off one of the payments. I thought, knock off a whole payment? So that would be 2 payments of $39.95 plus shipping. I'm calling. So I called. That's how I got it. So I got it, and then the next morning I called Laura. And I said, Laura, I just bought, and I forgot the guy's name, and it's called the 7-Minute Workout, and it's going to be shipped to our house. And she said, why in the world would you buy a 7-minute workout? And the cynical part of me said, because they didn't offer a 5-minute workout. I used it one time. Some of the bands are still in the wrapper. It's junk. But for one easy payment of $39.95, the slightly used stuff can be yours. See me after the service. In New York, Laura and I, when we lived there, we bought this Cool Daddy swing set. We got it from Costco. And I mean, this is not some little cheap metal thing, you know. This was like solid wood with curtains or a little fort thing, and it had everything on it. It weighed a ton. And it took us forever to put it together. By the way, whatever we own begins to own us. Or as Jesus put it, where your treasure is, there will be your heart. It owned 2 weekends for me. Now, here's the deal. At the time, my kids loved it. And when Laura and I were in Costco, we thought, oh, this would be great for the kids. It's a treasure. And I paid something like $1,400, $1,700 for this thing. I had to take money out of my mission giving to get it. But it was one of those things, must have it. But my kids were at that time like 2 and 4 and 7. And time came. And they got older. Jordan seldom goes to a park and swings or slides. And so time has made it junk. In fact, when we sold our house in New York, Laura and I were praying that the new buyers wouldn't say, I want that thing out of the yard. They didn't say it. We go through life accumulating boxes upon boxes. And what Jesus is saying in essence, in the Dwight Ford Revised Version, life is so short. Time and rust and moss will take away all your boxes. And really the only box you will ever really need on this earth is your coffin. And often the things we treasure, we think they have value, but we're just so blind in this kingdom, the world kingdom, of what the true worth is. You know, I'll tell you again, I feel like I'm watching a lot of TV, but Antique Roadshow. You ever seen that on PBS? One of my favorite shows. When I'm not watching religious Billy Graham films, I'm watching Antique Roadshow. And I like it for 2 reasons. Number one, I like it when people come in there with really crappy looking stuff. That's a Hebrew word. And they got this little stuff that, you know, just looks awful. And they say, well, my grandmother gave it to me, and we just have had it forever in the closet. And they say, well, that's actually this and this and this by the French artist, and it's $800,000. And they went, what? You know, you can see it. The sadistic part of me also likes it when somebody brings in something that they think is worth $800 million. And they go, well, this was passed down by 18 generations, and it's a beautiful painting of Robert E. Lee. They went, oh, yeah, this is a reproduction. It's maybe $30. Right? And so, you know, well, there's an appraiser that was on the show, and he tells the story that he's from New York, and he was out in the Midwest, I don't know, Nebraska, Kansas, out in the Midwest. And he, as an antique appraiser, he's driving, he sees this kind of a messed up barn, and it says antiques. And he always pulls in. So he goes into this antique store, and there's a guy, the owner, he's got a John Deere, you know, tractor cap, jeans, T-shirt, dresses no respectful way at all. And so he looks around, And all of a sudden he sees a cat, and then the cat is drinking milk out of this bowl. And he looks at the bowl and he thinks, no, it can't be. So he goes over to the bowl, looks at it, and it's from the Ming dynasty, worth $50,000. Well, he doesn't want to tip his hand to the owner because he believes the owner has no idea of what he has. So he says, Billy Bob, I love that cat. He goes, that cat? He goes, yes. I will pay you top money for that cat. I love the cat. He goes, it's just an old alley cat. He just kind of strums in here. I love it. I got to have it. I'll give you $700 for the cat. He goes, well, if you want it, I think you're making a big mistake. And he gives him $700. He goes over, picks up the cat, acts like he likes it, which is what a lot of people do. And he's petting the cat. And then he says, oh, by the way, since I paid $700 for the cat, could you throw in that dish? He went, oh, heck no, son. That's from the Ming Dynasty. That's worth $50,000. He went, but I tell you what, ever since I had it out there, I've sold 18 cats. I got to tell you this. There are a lot of smart people out there buying cats. Listen, I want to get across what Jesus is saying for you to think of. My former church, spent most of my life, it was in Bedford. Bedford is the home for IBM, International Business Machines. That's where they're headquartered, in Armonk, right next to Bedford. Almost everybody in my church was working with or somehow connected to IBM. And we had a lot of transitions because IBM would move people. And that's what they said it would stand for, I've been moved. And it's also called Big Blue, right, on the stock. A person was saying to this other person, did you know that, by the way, IBM went public in 1915. And had you bought just one share of IBM stock in 1915, do you know what you'd be worth today? Nothing, because you'd be dead. Money leaves us. And that's what Jesus is saying. All of these plans of storing up IBM stocks and Ming Dynasty dishes, it leaves. Money always leaves. Look at this. This is from Proverbs 23:4-5. I love this. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. People do that. Listen, people work overtime, neglecting their families and their children because they chase what the media says, you got to have this. You got to have this. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone. For they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. You remember the contemporary poem that's sort of like that? It says this, that money talks, I'll not deny. I heard it once. It said, goodbye. So Jesus is saying, you are not temporary. You are eternal. And don't ever invest in anything that has a short shelf life. Now, what has a short shelf life? Well, everything has a short, sometimes it's very short. Laura sent me out to buy milk last night. So I went to this local place that sells a lot of drinks. but they also sell milk. And I went in and I looked at the date, and it was like tomorrow it expires. But I did what most people do, and I got all the way to the back and pulled one out. So that has a short shelf life. But I got to tell you this, everything on earth has a shelf life, including you. You know, sometimes I go to a cemetery just to get my bearings back. I know it sounds creepy, but it just reminds me that these were all people. There's one just down the road. And you've heard this, you know this. On every headstone you will see there's a date when the person was born. Sometimes it's just the year. And then there's the date they died, or the year they died. And in the middle of those two dates is a little dash. That's it. I got a little illustration for you. Thought I did. That's the dash between the date you were born. And by the way, you have nothing to say about the day you were born, nothing to really say about the day you die, but you have a lot to say about the dash. Our life on earth is represented by this, a short little dash. And it goes so fast. That's why they call it a dash. You're born, and it just seems like yesterday, and then you grow up. You're thinking that life is so long, but I want to tell you this, guys, people who are younger, the more you age, the faster it goes. The dash somehow increases in speed. Haven't you noticed how quickly you're aging? Or have you noticed how the person next to you is aging so quickly? It's easier to see it in someone else. I was sitting a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, to get my hair cut, and I was looking at this mirror thinking, what happened? I mean, it seemed like yesterday I was playing baseball, football, and never had an injury, and now I'm looking at this stranger in the mirror with white hair. Life is a dash. Now, Andrew, would you come up? I want Andrew to help me. Keep this in mind. Okay. Now, when Andrew extends this, I want you to think of it this way. Don't get hung up with how Andrew looks thinner than I do. Because one day, that represents, and think of it just not with Andrew outside the door. This is eternity. This is eternal. You're eternal. See, we always think of eternity as, oh, that's when I die, and then no, you're eternal now. You are eternal. And this string represents it, but it doesn't go just to the door. It goes on and on and on. It's in infinity. And that is the reality of what Jesus, listen, what he is saying. Jesus says, live for this. Live for this line, not this. And that's just smart. That's just wisdom. See, here's the illusion that a lot of us think. I think it sometimes. This earth is my home. And so I want to pile up treasures, and I want to try to be happy here. But Jesus says, because he's kingdom-minded, he says, no, I got to remind you folks. I know you wake up every morning and you think this is going to go on forever. Earth is not your home. You were created for something more than this, more than this. You were made for eternity. You were made for heaven. So when stuff comes into your life, Jesus says, what you want to think about is, how can I use the gifts that God gave me to make a difference that will last here and not just pile up stuff that ends when the dash is over? And so here's the question, and you need to answer this. I need to answer this. Am I making a difference with my stuff? Am I doing that with my resources? Am I living for the eternal kingdom, or is my emphasis only in the dash? Am I living for the swing set, or am I investing in what God is doing in the world? Do you know Randy Alcorn? Has anyone ever heard of him, Randy Alcorn? Yeah, a lot of you have. Randy Alcorn, I stole this totally from him. He writes this: imagine you were living in the South during the Civil War, and the Civil War is coming to an end. You know it. Imagine it has become really clear to you which way the Civil War was going to end. You have a lot of money. You have a lot of treasure. It's all tied up in Confederate currency. But you know the war is about to end. And you know that the North is going to take over. What would be the smart financial thing to do? Apparently, this is why the bubble burst in Morris County several years ago. That was a joke. The smart financial move would be to convert all of your Confederate money into Yankee dollars. Because if you don't, it's worthless. As soon as the war is over, your money's going to be nothing more than a pile of paper. So what you want to do is convert it into something that will survive the end of the war. Well, that's what Jesus is saying. He says to us, the end is coming. The end is coming. Your life is about the length of this dash. In this world, listen, in this world, there is a war going on. And some of you even feel that inner civil war. There's a war going on between good and evil, between heaven and hell, between his kingdom and the kingdom of this world, which John says, is passing away. So the outcome is already sure. And Jesus says, if you're a follower of mine, this is your destiny. So for crying out loud, live for this, not this. Start to convert your currency into eternal currency. And the primary way that you do that, the primary way that you store up treasures in heaven is this. You just give it to God. It is more blessed to give than to take. You say, God, you have sent these resources my way. I want to invest them. And I realize, listen, always balance this. This sermon is not about, eating beans and rice every night so you can give more money to missions. That's not my point. My point, remember, Jesus said to the rich young ruler, sell everything you have. Why? Because it was his problem. He was trusting in his riches. He knew Martha and Mary and Lazarus. They were rich people. They had their own home. He never said it to them. Why? Because they were at the feet of Jesus. So you say, in essence, to God, God, I want more people to come to know about you and to be built upon you. I want to invest in things that will make an eternal difference. I want folks who are poor to be given help because you told us to do that. I want children in third world countries who can't even drink water because they'll die of diarrhea to have medicine and to simply have good food and clean water. I want to be communities. For those communities, I want there to be a church there. And I want to support people who are going to be involved in starting that part of the kingdom. where people can come to know you and love you and follow you and serve you. I want to invest in your kingdom. I want to take my resources and put them in your work and not just spend it on stuff that doesn't last, stuff that won't outlast the dash. The primary way that you store up treasure in heaven is to take the resources that you've been given and use it for this line, not this. What you treasure, says Jesus, will become your God. And where your treasure is, there will be your life. There will be your heart. Your treasure, what you treasure, becomes you. Remember the great movie? I love every version of it, Christmas Carol. Remember Scrooge? That was a guy that was defined by taking. And I love that great evangelistic moment, when he went, "Oh, what a lovely boy, how delightful." Remember, that's great. Listen, and this is not original. If you treasure money, you will be shaped by greed. That's what Jesus is saying. But some of us don't treasure money. We treasure other things. If you treasure security, you'll be shaped by fear. Got to have the security. If you treasure approval, you'll be shaped by wanting to please everyone so they like you. If you treasure success, you'll be shaped by achievement. If you treasure physical appearance, you'll be shaped by vanity. If you treasure power, you'll be shaped by arrogance. But Jesus says, if you treasure God, you will be shaped by His love. Would you bow? Father, this is always a kind of a touchy thing because the first part of it is that we want to be balanced. But Lord, there really is no balance. There's only one kingdom that matters. So God, would you speak to us? Lord, would you speak to us about the needs around the world, about the needs that are right here in this church? The ministry of this church, money will never be the problem, but we have to release it. So would you speak to us there? We want to treasure you. We want to treasure your kingdom. Because everything that's on this planet will become junk. And we pray it in Christ's name. Amen.